Hi guys, I thought I'd give you just a really quick introduction about what this video is actually about. Very recently I started playing Starcraft, probably just before New Year's I think, and basically been really enjoying it, and I was googling something to do with Starcraft or Zerg or something like that, and I came up with this picture that someone had done of a Zerg cake. They'd done like a whole base on the top of a cake, and I thought that's such a cool idea, and thought I'd try and replicate it myself. Now I have to say here, I'm really new to cake decorating. It's the first time I've ever covered a cake. It's the first time I've ever made candy. It's the first time for a lot of things, so be gentle because I really didn't know what I was doing. But I think it's turned out pretty well. I think I might do some in the future as well, like we were talking about how you could probably do like a whole cake that was a spawning pool or something, and I think that would be a really cool idea. But yeah, if you guys want to sort of replicate it, hopefully this gives you a bit of a guide about how to go about it. If you have any questions, or like I haven't explained something well enough, then please just comment or message me or something like that, and I'll be happy to explain it for you. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, so on with the tutorial.
Alright guys, this is the base cake I started with. All I did was make a white chocolate mud cake. I then filled and covered it with dark chocolate ganache, and then rolled out a thin layer of black fondant, sprinkled some black edible glitter onto it, and then rolled it onto the cake. You'll have to be gentle with me, this is the first time I've ever covered a cake in fondant, so it might be a bit terrible, but I was proud. Alright guys, the next part I did was make all of the sort of smaller, more detailed decorations out of fondant. All I did to the fondant to prepare it beforehand was obviously colour it, and then add some, I think it's called Celogen powder or Tylose depending on where you buy it. But all it does, they use it for making sort of sugar flowers and all that kind of stuff. It makes it so that the fondant will harden when you leave it to air dry rather than going all blobby and falling apart. So all I did was basically sit there with lots of reference pictures and try and get the basic shape down as best I could. Any parts that look like they've had sort of like painting done on them sort of after the fact, all that is some food colouring on a toothpick and then using it a bit like a pen to paint details on. So that's all I did for the hatchery and the drones. The Vespine geysers were a bit different. All I did for them was make the basic shape just out of the regular fondant, and then while they were still a bit sort of sticky, I patted on some cocoa powder around the edges just to make them look like a bit like dirt, and sort of made sure I didn't leave any patches like bare because I think it was green underneath or something. And then for the gas itself, I just coloured some sugar. I think I show it in a minute. Coloured some sugar green with some food colouring, just rubbed it around in a Ziploc bag, and then spooned it into the actual geysers themselves. So I made all of that and then let it dry enough to go hard so I could handle it later. Alright, now it's time for the minerals. All I did for the minerals was use a basic sugar glass recipe, and you can find them all over YouTube, and I'll try and find one and put one in the down bar. Make a sheet of that, but I made it blue, obviously, because it's bright blue, and then smashed it up into tiny pieces for the minerals. I just tried to make sure that I got them relatively even in size and about the right scale. You can't do anything with giant shards if they're trying to be tiny minerals, so just make sure you try and cut them into relatively even pieces. Alrighty, now for the creep. All I did was take some purple fondant and some scrunched up Glad wrap and started to roll out the fondant into a reasonably even circle. You don't want it too even because, you know, zergies are all organic, but the scrunched up Glad wrap will just give it that extra little bit of wrinkliness that the creep naturally has. So I just pressed it onto the cake. If the fondant on your cake's a bit dry, you might want to add a little bit of water just to make sure it sticks. Now it's time to add the hatchery. I just put a little bit of water on the back of it with my finger just to make sure that it would definitely stick. Alright guys, now I'm just taking a can of spray oil and just lightly misting it over any areas that would naturally be slimy, so the creep, the hatchery, that kind of thing. This just gives it a tiny little bit of shine. Now I move on to the minerals. you just want to make sure that you do have definitely enough room for all of them, because I put a few mineral fields in and then kind of realised I didn't really have enough room, and I had to go back and sort of smush them between each other and make sure they all fit. So just sort of have a pretty good idea of where they're going to span across before you start. Alright, now it's time for Vespene geysers. These were stuck on the exact same way as the hatchery, just with a little bit of water on the back. All I did differently for these was add a little bit of cocoa powder around the seam between the cake and the Vespene geyser. This is just sort of to emulate the little rocks that you see around it in the game, and also just to hide it just that little bit so it blends a bit easier.